Hello and welcome to our Athlete Profile series. I'm Chris Stafford, and my guest is retired Marine Corps Major Lisa Davis, who has recently broken into the Guinness Book of Records by completing 7 marathons on 7 continents in 7 days. She's become the fastest woman to complete the 777 quest and the first African-American woman to ever complete the quest. On January 31st, she completed the challenge in a record time of 7 days, 30 minutes and 27 seconds. The previous best time for a woman completing 7 marathons on 7 continents was just 10 days, 23 hours, 30 minutes and 40 seconds. For Lisa, this was a natural progression to her marathon career, having already completed 100 marathons and counting. The 777 quest took her from Perth, Australia to Singapore, Cairo, Amsterdam, New York, Chile, with the final run in the White Continent Marathon in Antarctica. Lisa, welcome to the program.
Thank you so very much.
Well, first of all, congratulations. 7 marathons on 7 continents in 7 days. That's quite a feat. The first question I have to ask, though, is why?
It was the natural progression of things. So I had completed 100 marathons. I had completed a marathon in every state plus DC. And then the last thing to complete for what they call the marathon hat trick was a marathon on every continent. So now I can say I have completed the marathon hat trick, 100 marathons, a marathon in every state plus DC, and one on every continent.
Well, let's start with a little bit of background to how you got into running and why it's important to you, why you just run for fun and you couldn't live without it. Tell us your story.
Okay, I've been running basically all my life, and I wasn't actually very good at it. I think I started out running for speed and then learned later on in life that I'm not very fast. Like, I can't be a sprinter. I'm not set up to be a sprinter, but I'm better for distance running. And even at that time, I considered distance running to be, a 5K or 10K. And then I had built my way up to a half marathon. And at this point, I'm 30 years old and I just had my first child. So I'm in the Marine Corps and I'm almost 5'9", and I'm always never had a problem with weight. And so here I find myself at 30 years old and I'm struggling with my weight because I just had a baby. And I said, oh my goodness. So I went back to my old faithful, which is running. And I was doing that for a while, like I said, running up to like a half marathon distance. And then I found out a few years later that Oprah Winfrey had completed the Marine Corps Marathon. And I was like, oh my goodness, I am a captain in the United States Marine Corps. And I didn't even think about doing the marathon. I didn't even think it was possible. And I'm like, well, Oprah, she's kind of like me, she's a normal person. She's not an elite athlete, really, and she just has determination. And I have determination. So I'm like, I think I can do a marathon. And so that's what I set out to do with absolutely no idea of how to train for it or anything like that. I just started increasing my mileage, and I set out to go run the San Diego Rock and Roll Marathon because I was stationed in California at the time. And that's what I did. And I was hooked ever since that day, and that feeling when I crossed the finish line of a marathon, I've been hooked, and I absolutely love it.
So clearly you're addicted to it now, but you mentioned there that it started whilst you were still in the Marine Corps. You retired now as a major. That must have given you some really tough training there to be resilient and to see these kind of things through, because they take strong will and determination to train and to do what you did with 1 marathon, but to do it in 7 over the course of a week is something else. Did you call on that resilience and the strength and the training that you had in the Marine Corps to help you see it through?
Oh, absolutely. The Marine Corps, I can credit them with, putting us in positions of where you're fatigued or tired and you're still having to perform at a high level. And so I knew mentally, so the Marine Corps made me mentally tough. And there's a lot of physical portions of the Marine Corps, don't get me wrong, but mental toughness at some point even overpowers physical prowess. So if your mind is strong and you have trained properly, you can pretty much push through a lot of things. And so I think the Marine Corps taught me how, what we call dig deep. and at some point you learn how to run on heart. So if you're tired and you're physically feeling tired and your mind and everything is starting to wander, you just dig deep to say, okay, you know what? You talk yourself through it and you push through it. And a little bit of discomfort is expected. And I say to myself that's temporary and victory is forever. So you push through the discomfort part and then you succeed and you move on. I mean, I think it taught me, like I said, to just bear down and get it done. And so mentally, I think I can pretty much do any kind of running event if I put my mind to it and I have the time to finish it. I can go on forever. I can run literally, I feel like, forever as long as the clock allows me to.
What would you say to women that are listening to this then, that have, that you could inspire them, because you clearly have shown how you can break through, you can keep going no matter what age you are and after you've had a family?
I would tell them to, first of all, to commit to themselves. For women, we're mothers, we're wives, and we work in a workforce, and sometimes we don't commit to ourselves. I mean, we don't invest in ourselves. We'll put our training and sometimes even our proper nutrition, everything to the side to take care of other things and other people. So I always say invest and commit to yourself. And that could be anything from 30 minutes to a day, or you can break it up in multiple times during the day, whatever you can do, but commit to yourself. And if you get to a point in your training, or even before you start training, sometimes that first step into training, whether it be running or, riding a bike or swimming, all I say is start out with a goal that you can attain. So you may say, I only can do 30 minutes. And so then 30 minutes. At some point you'll see, because you'll start getting the results of it, that you're gaining more so by doing this than not doing it. And when you're training, if you find yourself stuck or you find yourself feeling defeated, because, we have good days and bad days. I don't always have successful races. Sometimes I've had failures too, and you just go back and then have a different angle. So you just tell yourself mentally, what the good thing is I learn from my failures, I learn from my setbacks, but guess what? I live to see another day. I get to train harder next time, and I get to come back and redeem myself for my own personal satisfaction. So just always think about allow yourself to be one at some point. Allow yourself to be able to go out and do the things you need to do for your health, for your family, and mentally just tell yourself, this is a good thing. It always helps. You have a positive mindset. It makes everything better. It's always something to be positive about. Even when you think, I'm so tired, or I've gained a lot of weight, or I may have problems with a knee, because I have a bad right knee myself. You just tell yourself there's something I can be grateful for. And if nothing else, I'm grateful that I'm here today and I have a chance to do something better tomorrow, and at least something better for myself. So I just take it one day, give yourself an opportunity to step out one time, 15 minutes, 30 minutes or whatever, and then continue to do that. You'll find that you will be addicted, just like I am, to whatever it is, whether it's running, cycling, swimming, walking, and you'll pay dividends that you'll reap from that.
Is it about the winning, Lisa? Are you really competitive, or is it the taking part and the satisfaction of the training and completing a marathon?
Oh, that's such a great question, because I tell everybody, every individual defines victory, differently. And for me, winning or victory is completing a race, and completing it healthy, completing it where I have minimal recovery, because I love to run, and so I like to race as often as possible. I had one year I did 48 marathons in that year, and that included like a 50-miler and a 100-miler. So, for me, it's not about racing against anybody. I don't compete even with myself. I just have a goal, and my goal is to cross that finish line and feel just euphoric. So when I try to run faster, I don't enjoy it as much, and I find I have I'm more prone to injury, and I have a longer time to recover. When I run where I'm comfortable, for me it could be 4.5 hours, 4, 5. I can run kind of comfortably. I'm okay, and that's fine. I'm not going to win the race, and I don't have any desire to. My desire is to finish healthy with, like I said, minimum recovery, so I can turn around and maybe do it the next day or do it the next week. Be able to go out and enjoy the rest of my day and not have to sit up and elevate my feet. So for me, victory is just finishing the race. I set out, that's my goal, is to go in and finish comfortably, enjoy the race, enjoy every moment of the race, and finish, not to win and not to beat anyone, but just to enjoy the actual race. I enjoy it. So, yeah, for me, it's just crossing that finish line.
Well, we're going to talk now about what you've just achieved because it really is special. But first of all, let's get your feedback on being the first African American woman to do this, Lisa. I mean, what does that in itself mean to you?
That is so awesome. And it's right around Black History Month. I was like, that couldn't have been better. I will tell you, going into this, I had no thoughts of being the first anything or the fastest anything. This was actually a birthday present from my husband. He said he knew I wanted to do 7 continents. He knew that I love back-to-back racing. So he was like, oh, sure, this is a perfect gift for my wife. And so it was actually a birthday present. And getting into it, I had no idea what I was getting into. I knew it was, 7 races on 7 continents. I didn't know the terrain. I didn't know how the flying was going to go. I didn't know the time limit and the cutoff for each race. I just went in it blind. But to come on the other side of this and find out, wow, you're the first African-American woman to pull this off, and then the fastest woman to do it, made it so much sweeter. It made it so much greater. And I tell you, I love it because I'm hoping that I'm inspiring other African-Americans in distance running. Like I said, before I ran my first race, I had never contemplated, even fathom or thought about doing a marathon. So I'm hoping that they see that, we're good at this. So you can do this. This is something that you can do. An average person can set out and train to do. So I'm glad and proud to be the first African-American woman to have done that. And I hope, in some small way that I've encouraged, even if it's just 1 or 2 people to, contemplate and think about something like this.
Just give us the highlights of those that you did in Perth, Singapore, Cairo, Amsterdam, and New York. And then you threw a bonus in there in Chile at the end and the Antarctica.
I did.
Yeah, so tell us what those highlights would be from that experience that would have taught you what you need to know to even do more, as you say, as you take on more countries and more goals.
The 777, the way we set it up, it started out with probably the warmest weather, and we kind of digress to the absolute coldest weather. So Perth and Singapore were just hot. It was, I think, like 104 degrees at some point in Perth when we were running that race. It was grueling hot, and we started a little bit late, which didn't help because, we were racing against the sun. But it was absolutely probably one of the hottest races I've ever done. And I don't mind the heat, but when I think it's hot, that means that it's brutally hot. And we ran that race, jump on an airplane, go to Singapore. Singapore is hot, but in a different way. The humidity was just off the chain. It was off the record books. It was so humid. It actually rained a couple of times during the race, but the humidity was so badly that it was like, it felt like, to me, it was warmer than Perth because of the humidity. But I would say the logistics was better on their race, so I felt better running it, but it was very, very hot. And so those are our first 2 races. We get to Cairo. Cairo almost didn't happen. We had an hour delay in our flight getting into Cairo. So we got to Cairo. We had just enough time to change into our running gear, get to the start line, and run. And it was in a city, packed with people and cars. No one paid attention to traffic signs or anything. Those are all just suggestions. And so your life felt like it was on the line the entire race. And I don't speak the language, and I was dressed in a little skirt with a tank top. And so I had to use the bathroom. And they said, you're not dressed properly to go into the mosque, because I had my arms showing and my legs were showing. And so I was lucky enough to have someone who spoke Arabic to get me into the hospital so I could use the bathroom. So that whole race was a challenge. And it was exciting and scary all at the same time, because, like I said, we were running with cars coming at you and no one's yielding to the runners. It was different, but it was fun. And so it was a rush. We rushed in and we had to rush out of that race. And then we get to Amsterdam, which I absolutely loved Amsterdam. We ran around a lake and it was frozen, and they had families and dogs and babies all out ice skating on the lake. It was beautiful. And so it was entertaining. And, oh, by the way, half of it was a trail. And I was like, it doesn't get much better than this. And they had tea, all different types of tea. It was just great. It was a great, it was cold, but it was a great experience. And so we left there and we went to New York. Well, I tell you, New York, whoo, it was hard getting into New York because at the time they were doing the whole immigration thing. The president signed an order, looking for people to send back out of the country. So the airport was basically shut down. So we had problems getting in, and it was protesting going on. It was very stressful. It would be the word I would use. But the race itself was great. I had a lot of friends from running groups that I'm in. I'm in quite a few running groups. And the people who were within driving distance showed up to the race. And they were running with me, and they brought me some logistics support, like, I needed Advil, I needed food. They brought me stuff, and they talked to me, and they cheered me on and encouraged me, and it ended up being my absolute best race. It was my favorite. Everything was great about it until I got sick at the end, but it was absolutely a great race. If I felt good, I was surrounded by people who knew me and cared for me. It was great. And then we went to South America. And South America was probably one of the lowest points of the 7. I don't feel like I was fully recovered from New York. I was in New York and South America literally the same day. And I was swollen everywhere. I was sick with the flu, and it was brutally cold. And I don't think people realize where we were in South America, it's only like an hour and 45-minute flight from Antarctica. So it was brutal. It was cold. It felt like we were in Antarctica, and I wasn't prepared for that cold. I knew it would, cooler, but I didn't think it would be as cold as it was, and so I hadn't hydrated properly. I wasn't having proper nutrition. We had no rest. We get off the plane, we get to the hotel, we change, and we have to go run this race. So I will tell you that was my hardest race. I don't think I ever felt euphoric during that race. Normally I'll have a ups and a downs. You expect to have the valleys. I repeat, and I remember talking to the race support, and there are people out cheering us on. I'm like, just encourage me to keep going, because at that point it was all heart. I never felt like doing it. This is a race in this series. You got to finish it. And I tell people, just don't let me stop. Encourage me to just keep moving, and I'll get it done. I had to grin and bear it the entire race. So that was one of my toughest. And we got lucky. We were delayed to Antarctica. We were supposed to leave at 3 o'clock in the morning. So I was not looking forward to that. I'm thinking I haven't rested up until that point, no food. And so at the end of that race, I think I finished. It had to be like 9 o'clock at night. And I'm like, I had to pack my bags for Antarctica. We had to repack because we'd only take so many things with us. And I needed my sleeping bag, and because we were going to have to camp one night in a tent. And I'm thinking, thank you, Jesus, for giving me a little bit of delay. So we left the next morning. And so I felt so much better because I got food the next morning. I was able to get a little hydration. And we got to Antarctica, and it was cold. It was snow flurries coming down. And I thought, well, I expected that, and I was prepared for the cold. So it's okay. But I didn't realize we had to hump with our pack, which was okay because I'm a Marine, right? We had to hump almost a little over 2 miles to the campsite. We'd drop our packs and start our race. So here we are. In my mind, I'm thinking this should count towards my marathon. I'm doing I'm doing a couple of miles already with all my gear down the mountains. This should count towards my marathon. I'm not the only one thinking this. I'm like, this is not fair. So we humped our gear to the campsite in the start line. We dropped our gear. They hadn't even set up I call them a shower curtain with a bucket, because we had to relieve ourselves in buckets. They don't have hotels or anything in Antarctica. And so they didn't have the shower curtain set up. So the women grabbed the bucket, ran in one direction, and the men grabbed their bucket and ran in a different direction. So we're relieving ourselves out in the open in the freezing cold so we can start this race. And I'm thinking to myself, oh my goodness, but I knew it was going to be tough, but I'm thinking to myself, this is literally the light at the end of the tunnel. This is the 7th marathon, Lisa. This is it. You finished this race. This is it. You've done your 7, 7, and 7. And I was like, that carried me. The thought that I'm going to get this done carried me. There was a camera crew out there. They were from Germany, I want to say. They were doing a documentary on Antarctica. They knew that the 777 was coming, and they wanted us to be their culminating story, I suppose, to wrap everything, the different things we can do in Antarctica. So they were following us, this camera crew following the 8 of us, even though there were probably 60, 70 of us there, because it was actually the White Continent Marathon, and there were people who had paid just to come run that particular race who were there too. So I remember thinking the cameras, they were always on me. They were always with me. And at some point, I'm like, I'm not really running that fast if this guy has a camera and a microphone and he's keeping up with me. I'm like, this is not good. But I'm going up a mountain, and it's all rocks, you know, it's rocky. And the lady is talking to me, and it's so funny. She sounds like you. You have her voice and your personality, because she was real bubbly, and you have the same kind of accent when you talk. So her name was Donna, and she's like, Lisa. She's asking me, she says, what are you thinking right now? And I said, well, honestly, Donna, the wheels have fallen off the car. I'm not in a happy place at this point going up this mountain, but talk to me when I come back down, and I'll be in a better mindset. And she says, no. She said, well, tell me, what is motivating you to keep going right now? What is going through your head? What are you thinking right at this point that's motivating you and pushing you to go up the mountain? And, you know, and the cameras are in my face and the mic is in my face. And you know what I told her? I said, the promise that it's going to be better when I get to the top. And I told her, I said, I know no matter how I feel right now, this too shall pass, and it's going to get better as soon as I get to the crest. As soon as I hit the top, I'm going to feel better. And so I'm waiting on that promise. I know it's coming. I'm anticipating it. I've trained. I know when I'm training and I feel like this, just give it a minute. It'll pass. And I said, I know it's going to pass. So I'm just holding on to that hope and that promise. So this was getting to the top. And she was so fascinated. And so I did. And when I came back down, I was a different person. I was happy again. I'm like, okay, I'm happy. Talk to me now. You can talk to me now. I'm a happy person. But I did that a couple of times, you know, I'm not so happy. But I told her, I said, this is the last race. And so I'm gonna finish. And so I was just excited about that fact. And actually, when I crossed the finish line, it's so funny. I broke out into a dance. No music playing. I was dancing so much. Everybody started dancing. So we're all dancing. I mean, just dancing. And they're like, you have so much energy, you can do this again. I was like, I don't know about that, but I'm excited and we're dancing. So it was really a great experience. I tell you what, the next day I'm thinking, what do I do? We woke up and I didn't have a race. I almost panicked. I'm like, what do I do? Oh my goodness. But we did have a hike, right, with all our gear back to the airplane. So it was fun. And I would tell you, when you do something like that, Chris, it shows you who you are. It's easy to see who you are when you're happy and everything's feeling good, everything's going well. But when you find yourself in a situation that's like your adverse situation, mentally, physically, emotionally, you learn what you're made of, you learn who you are, and it tells you something about what you can do in life, that if I can do this, I can do about anything I set my mind to. And you gain so much confidence. You are so much, what would I say, just the whole outlook in your life. You know what I mean? It transcends running. It's like, when I think about it, it's like, wow, it's an outer body thing. Like, wow, look what I did. And I didn't think I could do that. I'm like, I have a leg that says I should be able to do it. I'm 47 years old. I am flying all over the world. I'm not eating properly. But look what I was able to pull off. And oh, by the way, I'm still standing. And guess what? I'm going to run another race in the next couple of days. That's how I'm thinking. I'm like, this is great. This showed me I am tough. Like, Lisa, you're really tough. And I was like, so proud of myself. I don't think I've ever felt more proud of myself than I did when I finished these 7 continents and some of the lows that I hit and overcame them. So I'm like, life, guess what? Bring it on. Bring it on. I'm ready. Bring it on.
And you did break records in the process.
Oh, absolutely. The Guinness Book of World Records has this as 10 days, 23 hours, and so many minutes and so many seconds. I did it in 7 days, 30 minutes, and 27 seconds. So I definitely broke the Guinness Book of World Record. And didn't anticipate that either. I was like, well, it may or may not happen. It really was contingent upon flying in and flying out on time, right? Getting to the flights. And so we were lucky that the weather cooperated. And then there was another lady who was in the marathons just like I was. And I just so happened that I finished before her. So, yeah, I broke the record. Can you believe that? How wonderful is that? I broke the world record. I surely did.
You really did there. That is absolutely fantastic. Congratulations for doing that. What sort of ratio do you find in marathon running of African American women in all the marathons that you've done, Lisa?
Oh, that's a more of a complicated question, because I would say different type of marathon. So running, let's say, a road race where it's like a Chicago marathon or a Marine Corps marathon or something to that sort, I would say that African American women representation is probably at least, I'm going to guess, about almost a fourth. This, of the population, because there's more now than it ever has been. When my first Marine Corps marathon was in 2005. I did one last year. It was a lot of African American women, bunches and bunches of us. So we've increased on road races and road marathons, and even more so like on halves. But I would say it may have been something a little less than a fourth, but it was close. I mean, it was a substantial number. I would say a substantial number of African American women. What I will tell you on road trails, I like to run trails. That's really where my heart is, in trail running. And we're not as represented in that endeavor. I have it oftentimes been the only one. You know what I mean? The only African American woman running a marathon or a 50K or anything of that distance on the trail. Even if it were a half, sometimes there's no African American women on the trail. So I think trail running is a lot less representation for African American women, and I'm hoping maybe that'll pick up. But I would say road races, we're doing great. We're showing up at like a rock and roll series. They show up, like I said, the big races, the Marine Corps, Chicago, New York, all those types of races, and even some other less known, but they're coming out more and more than it was, let's say, back in 2002. So I would say the bigger races probably about a fourth, smaller races a lot less. But I will tell you, I'm at the start line, and even at the finish, I'm seeing a lot of faces that look like mine, and it's very encouraging.
Well, that is encouraging, because we've heard from Sika Henry, who's someone I know that who's done marathons as well, and she is she's a triathlete, and of course she's very much in the minority as an African American in triathlon. How do we encourage you guys from running to try triathlon?
Ooh, that's a steeper mountain to climb, because, for example, and I would just give you my example from being in the military. When I was enlisted when I first started the military, so at the time our swim qualification was, basically you just had to survive in a pool without touching the side or the ground for like 5 minutes. Then I got a couple of degrees. I got a couple of master's degrees, and I got commissioned to be a commissioned officer in the Marine Corps. Now the swim requirement was I had to be a level 2 swimmer. So now I have to actually know how to swim, tread water, do blouse inflation, dead man float, swim 2 laps in the pool with my gear. So I was required to actually know how to swim. And it was so funny. We would crack a joke, and this is really funny. We would say it's like NAACP at the pool. It would be all the African Americans in the training session at that time, going through the school. So at the time it was called the basic school, and it would be filled with all African Americans, men and women. We didn't know how to swim. I grew up in a household, so unlike Sika, whose parents had the foresight to put her in the pool when she was able to walk, my mom was definitely afraid of water. She just wasn't going to do it. She still is, and that filtered down to me, and I was afraid of water before I even knew why I was afraid of water. And then I did have an incident where I almost drowned, but my brother learned how to swim. So I guess the long pole in the tent, the biking isn't the hard part. The running isn't the hard part. It's the open water swimming. So even today, I know how to swim, but I still have a fear. I'm not comfortable in the water. But I do get encouraged, and I'm noticing more women trying, and this on my list of something to do. I'm taking, private swim lessons to try it out, but open water swimming, I'm terrified of it. So I think the first part of a triathlon is getting African Americans to learn how to swim, and then being comfortable out of the pool into an open water environment with a lot of other people. So that's a little steeper hill to climb, because if you came from a family like mine, you came from an environment where your elders don't like the water. They're terrified of it, and they pass that along to the children. And so we've become fearful of the water. And, thankful I broke the cycle. My daughter, I did her similar to what Sika has done. I started her swimming when she was a toddler. So she swims like a fish. She's competitive swim. So, but I'm learning to, enjoy the water more. But it's one thing about being comfortable in it enough that, because you really have to be comfortable to do open water swimming. It's not the pool. And so I think that's the long pole in the tent, is to make more opportunities, and actually seeing women and men do triathlons, knowing that, okay, yeah, we can overcome this swim thing. Because I would bet that's what we call the long pole in the tent, is the swimming portion of the race. Yeah, maybe comfortable in that water. That's the hard part. You get past the swimming, the biking, and the run, it's a piece of cake.
Well, clearly you'd have no trouble with those either, the running for sure. And someone who enjoys participating in sport as much as you do, Lisa, clearly. What's on your bucket list now that you've achieved so much with marathons? What's next?
Well, right now, so I still have quite a bit of marathoning this year, but my biggest challenge this year is I'm running the Great Wall of China in May, the marathon in the Great Wall of China. And like I mentioned a little bit earlier, I have a right knee that bothers me because I broke and displaced my fibula some years ago and never had a good recovery. I came out of the boot and started training for a 100-mile race almost immediately. I didn't do physical training, like any physical therapy for it, and I probably didn't stay in the boot long enough. So my muscles aren't, properly balanced, and they pull at my knee. So my knee itself is fine. It's the muscles pulling, incorrectly is causing my problem with my knee. So I go to physical therapy twice a week. But even with that, I want to climb those 164 stairs in May at the Great Wall of China. And so I'm like, that's my eye on the prize, to finish the Great Wall of China marathon. That's what I really want to do. And I've registered for it, and I'm ready to go. Mentally, I just got to get my body ready physically. But then after that, I've heard that they have an eighth continent. And so I saw online where they came up with the 888. So I'm interested. I'm so interested in doing the 888. So we'll see how that goes. If they come up with a way to run on that eighth continent, look for me to be there. I will do that too. And I'm expanding my international racing. I would like to run in other countries. They have a running group called the Globetrotters. And I would like to be a part of that group. So I think they have to run so many countries to be involved. And so that's what I'm kind of starting expanding, where I run. And then, like I said, I am trying to implement the swimming so I could, dabble in a triathlon at some point. I would really like to try something like that. And lastly, to continue with trail racing. I would like to increase my distance, and maybe I'll do a 50K trail race in every state, something like that. But I would really like to do more trail running too. That's where my comfort and my heart is running through the trees. Maybe that's the Marine Corps in me, but I like it a lot.
I'm curious now, as you said, you wake up each day thinking, oh gosh, I don't have a race to run. What does training involve for you right now, Lisa? Do you give yourself a little break, or you just keep going?
Oh, no. For the past weekend, I ran a 20-mile race, a distance series race with the Tidewater Striders, which is another group that I run with. And then the very next day, I did a 50K, which was 32 miles. So I did 50 miles that weekend, just last weekend. Sure did. And I have a race this weekend. And in March, I have a marathon every weekend in March. I have 2 marathons and a 24-hour race in April. And then, of course, I have the Great Wall of China in May.
So what do you do when you're not running then? You said you have a husband, you have a family. What does the rest of the life that you have now look like as a retired Marine Corps major who just loves her running?
Yeah, well, actually, I still work. I still work for the Marine Corps as a financial management officer, but I'm a civilian. And my daughter, she's away in college, so she's 6-7 hours away from me now. And then my son, he's here. He's in high school, second year high school. So we do to the gym. So I do some training in the gym, and my husband and my son, they love going to the gym. We all do something different, but we all go to the gym at the same time. And I don't typically have time to do stuff like watch TV. So when I'm home, I have time to do laundry and all those types, catch up on things I can't do on the weekend. That's the downside. So, most people take their weekend and do the house cleaning, their laundry, and all those things. Well, I spend the weekends racing. And typically my husband travels with me. He'll come and watch me race and, those types of things. But so my weekdays are typically working, house stuff, and then training, gym time or whatever with my family. And then the weekends I spend, actually trying to get some racing in. And then sometimes we do stuff like, we do like to go watch hockey games. We like to watch baseball games. My husband's really, really big in MMA. He does jiu-jitsu and Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and Muay Thai, and so we sometimes watch, MMA fights. So we're really a big, sports family, if you will. We're a big sports family. My son likes football and basketball. My daughter plays softball in college. So we always do something surrounding, probably sports or exercising.
Well, that's wonderful, and clearly lots of opportunities for you and especially African-American women in this sport and others, of course. And we want to thank you for being such an inspiration, Lisa. It's truly fabulous to hear your story. And I hope you'll come back and tell us, how it's going. Will you let us know about all the trips that you're doing, and so we can follow you around the world?
Oh, absolutely, yes. We'd love to. And I think the biggest one will be, like I said, the Great Wall of China. That's very interesting. That would be a success story if I can pull that off.
All right. Well, we look forward to hearing more about your travels. Thank you again for coming on the program, Lisa. The very best of luck to you.
Thank you so very much. I appreciate it.
And you'll find many more conversations from around the world of women's sports on our website at wispsports.com, including videos and hundreds of podcasts, articles, and blogs. You can also follow us on social media at Wisp Sports. Until the next time, thank you for listening.